Okay, well, sorry I'm a bit late, but I haven't quite prepared what I wanted to do this because I changed things. But really what I had at the end of the thing, I was looking at the Ranginui settlement. And the Ranginui settlement is the only one I know where, as a iwi, it went to the hapū. How long have I got, Tom? So I'm looking at about, they did settlement in 12, 13, and then looking at some of their documentation and how they distributed the money, and then jump back into a little bit of historical context, why there was difference between hapū. Myself, I actually was involved with the hapū, was first Ngāti Kahu. We did the first large new claim under the change in the Act. We retrospective claims to 1840, but it was a sort of containing the proposed boundary extensions of the Tauranga city out into the rural area. This is to the Waiau River, or Bethlehem if you're thinking of buying in Tauranga. Oh, that's right, it's Auckland. And then so basically Tauranga people had no money. And that was at that time, late 80s, early 90s. Kaitahu streamed ahead because they used their own money, I think $1 million or $2 million. Tainu went straight to settlement, so the Crown provided the money. And then we struggled at the beginning. The tribunal had very little. And I think they provided a couple of researchers and a lawyer at the beginning, Joe Williams, about 1990. And then Crown Forest Rental Trust come in, and that's when they started opening up and provided funding for the claims in Tauranga. Katikati is a little small forest. This image was taken by a tupuna ancestor who was shot behind Puripuri, and there's a booklet of dreams that's in the National Library, our Turnbull Library, and it was so-called taken by Gilbert Mayer, and he said that he shot the person. Very nice, gruesome war story. But then in a report at another time that about 20 times who was at the incident recorded something different, and I picked it up from Judy Benny in her book about the Koji that Gilbert Mayer was prone to exaggerate a little bit. And what it is, it's sort of what the ngitanga Hauhau were into, Kingi Māori. Governor Gray, Tom says there must have been a Catholic. I asked him, what religion would this be? And say Catholicism. It's quite important because there's hapū in Tauranga who are Catholics. So there's a little bit, one hapū Piriraku claim, this belonged to their tupuna, and then I'm from Ngāti claiming that it belongs to Ngāti. So this is the settlement package, and then you ask the question, why the diversity? And then simple answer, politics. I know about it, but I won't go into it. Because I was involved in the whole claim process. I think the last tribunal was about 1994, or 96, yeah, 96 was the second stage, and then people started settlement. Really long process, but you know, when you've got no money. Yeah, so that's what I'm interested in. I sort of know the reason, but I want to try and separate, distance myself. And then this is the total. So they say $1 million to 8 hapū. And then I sort of go back to, this is the with the settlement package, and you can download a lot of the stuff, it's all online if you want to explore it. And this is from the document, because there's two hapū, Ngāti Wai and Ngāti Taka, they didn't have a history involved in the raupatu. But I'll talk about that. And then, and this is in the document. Crown talks to Ngāti Taka. they were actually just a hapū. They were pirirako. I'll get shot if I said that in Tauranga. But their Ngāti taka is common in Tauranga. A lot of hapū had hapū, and that's how the distribution of land was based on hapū. That's sort of land tenure. And there's no statement for Ngāti Wai. And then the Crown makes the apology to all those hapū. And then this is sort of standard settlement speak. And then these are some of the Wai claims different hapū had. But it's part of, because you had it started I think 1998 to 2005, 6 tribunal process. So a lot of dynamics and a lot of changes. And this really reflected, because one whānau responded to, I suppose, a report that was derogatory to their ancestor, and then that's Ngāti taka, and then they went on a whole claim, and the tribunal sat on them. So that's how that is, and then Ngāti. Yeah, you don't see a Ngāti Wai there, but they come under the umbrella of Ngāi Tamara Waho. But I'm one of these guys, I'm dealing with RMA, is about, truth and fact. Westerners just say, when do people create themselves or establish themselves, or are long established, don't need to establish themselves, so all those sort of questions. And then, and this is the 8 hapū. People here familiar with Tauranga? I suppose I better do the obvious. And then so Tauranga became supporters of the Kīngitanga through historical relationship with Ngāti Haua, the Waharoa of Ngāti Haua, because when Ngāti Haua were dealing with marutuahu around along the what they call then the Horuchu, from Kirikiriroa, Hamilton here down to Karapiro, and then Ngāti Haua were based at Tamahere, and then at Maungakawa, and then the Hauraki people were forced by Tautokoro Ngāpuhi with the muskets, were forced to the Waikato River. And then Ngāti Haua didn't have access to muskets, because everybody needed muskets. And then so they went to the foot of the Kaimai, after Hauraki Marutua, who left Maungatautari, that area, Te Waharoa established Matamata. That's where the Waharoa. And then they went to the foot of the Kaimais, and they carried the flags over into Umukuroa, and that's where the relationship started. And then Tauranga came over and helped Te Waharoa at Taumatawiwi. So that's the sort of, and then the link has always been closely with what we know in the Kīngitanga as the Tumuaki. Tamihana. Yeah, so that's where the relationship, although Tupaia, who was a fighting chief of Waitarangi at that stage in the 1830s, 1840s, he was close to Te Whewhewhero, like all those fighting chiefs, and Te Whewhewhero had a hākari in Kohimarama, in, just forget the date, 1844, in Auckland, and then Tupaia was invited. So that sort of gives you an indication of relationship. So when the Kīngitanga was formed, and especially put the role of Tāmihana, Tauranga were there, and so that's the origin. So as part of the invasion of Waikato, starting from Tāmaki, coming right through to Ōrākau, and then the troops went to Tauranga. Some of the Tauranga hapū, especially Pirirako, Ngāti Rangi, they were in the Hunuas right up the first part. And then Tauranga were at Meremere. So that's a, and then so because of that the land was confiscated. So this is a report from Smith, who was the local government agent. And then, you know, this is where the surveillance, during this period, there's a lot of surveillance. So you look into the appendices of the House of Journals, House of Representatives, they publish all these reports, basically, surveillance of spying, what the Kīngitanga people do, what they say, all that sort of stuff. So this is where the idea of surveillance comes from. And Tauranga, like Waikato, half were Kīngitanga and half were, they remained neutral, or in Tauranga, they didn't use the word kupapa, used queenie, means queen, or loyal or friendly, as officials will say. And then the red sort of indicates the ngitanga Hapu, who, so the officials said there's a difference between the west and the east harbour, Waitarangi and ngitanga Hapu. Although the Hapu aren't named here, it's just all the different settlements. If you notice, this area here, there's no settlement there, so that's 1863, 64. That's towards Katikati area. Because what had happened during the musket, I call it the Māori War, that's during the 1830s, the people clustered their kāinga and pā in the central part of Tauranga. So that's what, and you know, there was standard pattern in a lot of, during that area and a lot of other tribal areas. Because if you're out on the frontier, you're vulnerable to be attacked. So 20 years later, and the other thing was trade with Auckland, and so on. So that's, and then, so you had the Battle of Pukehinahina Pā in April 64. Tauranga followed, a large loss, unprepared, and then they had called it the Waitarangi surrender. And then so Grey attended it and promised to take quarter of their lands and return the rest. And then, and a lot of them, they were called surrendered rebels. They had to plead allegiance, and then basically, when you record it, you're in the Crown's good books, and they're eligible to future land distributions. And then straight after, December 1864, Paimārere was brought to the Kaimai by Ngāti Haua. And then because Paimārere became the Tāwhiao, went to see Te Ua and then come back, and then it spread, became, I suppose, the religion of the Kīngitanga. So, and then this is a map just showing the, it's a sketch map, but the brown area south of it, or I suppose the bottom part, is all the, where all the Hauhau hang out. And there was a large map done around the area, and I'll show you another snippet. So you can see this side here, that's the Raupati area, because all of Waikato were in the Rohe Pōtai, or we know as the King Country. And then it includes some of Hauraki people, because in about 1864 to 68, a lot of Ngāti Haua Hauhau hung out there. So a lot of Ngāti Haua were kupapa, and that was common in the Waikato, that there was a lot. And then that's how, where a lot of the marae and where all the bits and pieces of land within the Raupatu, that's the source of the where Waikato had remaining land within the Raupatu area. So with the Waikato settlement, what they did, they had a compensation court in a very short time. People who were friendly to the Crown, if you rebelled, you hadn't surrendered, you couldn't apply. And then you made applications, signed a document, and then there was a hearing, ranged from Ngarawahia to Auckland, and distributing the confiscated land to I suppose, friendly Waikato. In Tauranga, it's a little bit of a process. It's supposed to follow the compensation court, but it didn't. It took a couple of years, but it was sort of quite messy. And then this is a map that was drawn up. The Katikati Te Puna, the Waikarangi chiefs went to Auckland and then did a deal, and then gave those blocks to the Crown and then got payment. Very much what's happening if you see in the Rena at the moment. Then there's the 50,000 confiscated block, and the other area is what they call return lands. But then what had happened is that when they started surveying, because the surveys didn't know where they were going, and then some of the hapū, especially Pererako and their mates, got sensitive. And then Tamihanga was organised as the Kīngitanga go-between between Tauranga and Tawhia, who was in Rohe. He was trying to lobby the Crown, bring some sense into the process while people just were rushing. So he represented the Kīngitanga voice for Tauranga. So this is one letter. But he died that year, walking from Mangakawa back to Waitangi. I only found out, I did some work with Ngāti Hauhau on their settlement, why he was there, because he just lived over the hill at the foot of the Kaimais, just past Okawa, if you know the place, at Waitangi. And some say he's buried there. And then this is sort of a statement. And this is where this whole, you can go through documents, you see a whole, basically to deal with people who were resisting to stirring. There was, in my words, a put down, and then you make derogatory statements about them. So here they're calling the Ranginui Hapu, although you notice there's no reference to Ranginui, that they are inferior hapus of Maitarangi, and they're always kept in a state of vassalage. So that was a common, you go through all the documents, and those sort of sentiments were some would go, to say they're not very intelligent, that's why the Maitarangi are the chief state leaders, very 19th century hierarchical intelligence factor. So you can see that, this is the same actually. So that's what the Pirirako disrupts their survey. How much time have we got on? And then this is sort of just a map showing, because what I didn't say is that straight after, by January 1865, all the people who converted to Kīngitanga, to Hauhau, they all retreated to the bush edge and set up their kainga all around the bush edge, and set up a bit of a roho aukati, nobody was to, okay. They weren't to enter the area. So very much a similar principle what was happening with the rohe pōtai. And then this is where the Perirako and other hapu were in action, and this is Naitiahi area, Waimapu. And there's the kainga. And then what had happened starting in January 1867, a militia from one redoubt had an arrest warrant, and they went to this kainga Terihanga. And then when they entered, naturally, they say they stumbled. When they entered in it, the men in the kainga, the Ngāti Rangi, they turned around and fired, and a British military person was shot. There's a memorial there to him. But the captain of the troop from the redoubt was reprimanded and stood down because he wasn't supposed to do that. But that started a massive, warfare, which you don't read much about it. You see it in where all the Hauhau kainga were attacked, and the government started their burnt earth policy. They destroyed everything. So a number of people were killed. Old people were left in the different kainga, and there was over a period, you can see this is the tracks they're going up, the military. It was a campaign for a few months. People disappeared in the bush, and then a few months later they could see smoke coming from these kainga. They re-established. But the troops who were there were British, the remnants of the British military. Te Arawa, there's a force of 200 that was recruited. So this was the start of their kupapa force. They were from Makatu, recruited by Gilbert Mayer and William Mayer, and then surrendered Ngaitarangi chiefs, and there was even a Pahipoto chief on the Crown side, the Rangi Tūkehu, is it? The Rangi Tūkehu. So, yeah, very interesting iwi relations at that time. And then, yeah, so. And then this is down to the Tauranga, showing where the military and everybody was established. And then what the Crown did is, compared to Waikato, that they absolutely confiscated all the settlements within the Raupatu area. In Tauranga, as part of Grey's promise, they gave their papakaingas back. And then, so if you go to a number, especially all the Ranginui marae, you know, that you'll see a pā in the neighbourhood, so people will be living there 300, 400, 500 years. And then this is part of the brown is blocks that were given back to the hapū. But what had happened when they started with the Tauranga Districts Lands Act 67, 68, they formed commissioners and was run like a native land court. It wasn't a land court. And then they, some of the bureaucrats, they distributed the hapū land back to the hapū and individuals, a lot of individuals. And like here in the Waikato, the Freenley all got a lot of blocks scattered throughout the area. And then this is the inland area. And then about the 80s, early 80s, the commission started hearing all these blocks. By then, especially the Periraka, Ngāti Rangi, Ngāti Pango, resistance had sort of tapered off and people were entering the area. So even up to the 1870s, people were being chased out of the area by Hauhau with their guns. And one of my tupunas was, he had his name in the paper. His name was Maka or Tōkana. So, but what happened here, so on this side you've got, yeah, there's Pūkenga, you've got Waitaha, so you've got Ngaitarangi Hapu there, that's the Ranginui Hapu. And then when I was doing the Raupatu research, I sort of checked out all the lists of owners. Evelyn Stokes did a document of all the blocks, who gave it. And you can see in the Ngaitarangi side, you don't see too many strays, what I call strays, people who don't belong to the Hapu. But from this area right through to there, you see a lot of Ngaitarangi in it. And then if you know the whakapapa, you know. But what happened, because it was confiscated, customary tenure had been extinguished, and then so the commissioners could allow anybody in. And the particular hapu here, Ngāti Pango, Ngaitarangi Hapu, claimed their land, and although admitted them to the list. So there was basically a lot of Ngaitarangi, you know, were helping themselves. That's a reality. So that's the background, and then so so the 18th, by the turn of the 20th century, you get petitions, especially coming from Ngāti Ranginui, and then that is when they are saying they are Ranginui, separate, distinctive from Ngaitarangi. And then the Sim Commission came, basically said Tauranga confiscation was justified, and then Ranginui, especially led by Tauranga. So in the 19th century, it was Periraka that was sort of the leadership in terms of trying to contain, I suppose, the impact of the Raupatu and into what land they had left. And then by the 20th century, Ngāi Tamarawaho were active in leading in the, you know, sort of doing, putting forward submissions and a whole lot of processes. They're quite active. So, so when it comes, so the Ranginui, so when we come to the, after the, everybody waited till the tribunal had done, they did two reports, one doing the historical area and the second one report in hearings was more dealing with contemporary issues. And then Ngāti Ranginui spent 7 years trying to organise themselves because one hapu says, well, they started way back in the 1990s, they went to the Crown saying, we want to settle as a hapu. And then the Crown was saying, and especially with the Labour government, they have, sort of forcing people for settlement into collective units, whatever they meant. So ideally, they wanted Tauranga, all the three iwi, or how many iwi, they wanted to settle as one. But especially the Ranginui hapu, they were, and you can understand, if you understand Ranginui hapu, they operate, iwi, they really are hapu-centric. So this is sort of the tail end. And then they did a comparison. But what I found that in the settlement process, and having been involved in two, there's a sort of, how can I put it? It's very difficult if you, like myself, you're an anthropologist or historian, you've been disciplined, you've been trained, and then you see a lot of people coming up with statements, but that's their image of themselves. You know, say, oh, that's not right. Oh, that's a lot of crap. But, you know, they're projecting themselves. That's the image. And the Crown accepts it. There's a little bit of... And then a little bit... And so this is what it is, the breakdown. Treaty... So really, where you got the variation in what the distribution of the hapu was, one is the 50,000 acre confiscated area, 20% for the Te Puna Katikati purchase and other breaches. But it didn't really match. And then they distributing the Crown properties. And then this is sort of the percentage difference. This is just in property. Although Piri Rākau and the major quantum and Nai Kamarawaho. So the variation really is where your hapu lands were and what the goodies were. And the thing about with Tamarawaho and others, I thought I had Google Earth. You would have shown it clearly. In my account, because I do it in a class, you show where the high value properties, and that's where the disparity between some of the hapu occurred. And then, so today, I got this last night, who they define themselves as the Ranginui iwi. You see Tamarawaho. So if you see Ngāti Taka were in the settlement, received money, and they're not as part of the Ranginui iwi. And then this is the trust board. Originally the trust board, when it was formed, was from a 250,000 settlement in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. They only had 10 spaces on the, and then through the, I suppose, the treaty claims process, they extended to cover all the hapu. And then one hapu, like Piri Rākau, got 4 marae. So I'll just leave that there and see what happens with questions. Kia ora.
Thank you for that. Now time for a couple of questions.
With all your work, what do you find the most, if you could name one, I'm sure there's many, what's your most challenging part of your job and all your research? What is the hardest things to find?
I think it's when we have gaps in our knowledge.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty tricky with that stuff. No, but you know, it's you know, that's where you get into Foucault theory and post-structuralist. You have remnants, you have fragments. So you look at those fragments and you know, you just you get info from anywhere. And then memory is one word I use. So what memory? You know, rather than oral tradition, memory. And then when you'll be working, it takes 10, 15 years to put it together. That's reality. But you actually, at the end of it, you can come up with a nice narrative. So it's just hard grind. For those ones who've been, their whole lifestyle had been disrupted by whatever process in the past. Because I was in 1986 in Tūhoi at Ruatoki, and I heard drinking beer, and then hear people talking about their tupuna following, you know, being with the coercion and being chased. And then the narrative was as though they were there. It was so clear. You know, and then I thought, don't hear this in Tauranga. The only one I heard when I was doing this in the late 80s was an uncle, and a couple of others. They talk about Ngāpuhi, but not about this era. And that was, I actually come out my thesis is I come up with an idea about memory loss. And it's basically Crown's policy, surveillance, violence, a whole lot of issues, you know, for a number of years. And then what I found is that the generation who were the Hauhau, they never passed the experience to the next generation. I'm sure it's a common happening today, you know, in the Middle East or wherever.
Just listening to that question, maybe there was a woolly thought in my mind and it clarified it. I'm looking at Waikato in South Island, and my supervisor said, "Oh yeah, the first battle of the land was," but so much of what you said resonates with what I'm discovering.
Yeah, well,
Stories that have been lost, gaps in the knowledge, erasure of whakapapa, erasure of the context, the links between generations. And I suppose the question is, how do you deal with the frustration, not even just trying to fill the gaps, but the frustration of knowing the knowledge is, and was done deliberately to erase the ability to.
I've actually been doing work with the Kapiti Coast with the iwi Te Atiawa, Raukawa and Ngāti Toa, and I actually just come back from a meeting with them on Tuesday. I found it really fascinating because their land court is really rich. A lot of information, while with the Raupatu there's very little. And then I found it, but I could see, and then they, this is for heritage within the district plan, and then they talked about that they had to go to archive, stuff like, you know, that material. And it gets a bit tricky, especially I'm in the area that deal with heritage, when, you know, you've got memory saying, oh, that's Waikato, we don't go there. You know, how do you translate that a Pākehā property owner understands that? But I'm finding experience, but good, I suppose training helps. You know, just you know, even you don't have to be minimal education, but just knowing how to look, how to pick up stuff, and how to put it together. That's all.
Kia ora, Des, thank you very much for that, and for your expert knowledge and a little taonga there for you. Thank you very much, Des.
In the collection of these.